Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our second webinar. This webinar is being streamed live from Beacon, where we currently have a Karten Network event taking place, and so it's a little bit ambitious. Neither myself nor Matt Harrison, who's our guest speaker today, are in our normal working environment, so you might just have to bear with us a little bit whilst we get the technology together. The format is going to be fairly standard, a little bit of introduction to the Karten Network and some network news. The webinar will be recorded, and recordings will be available after the webinar. They'll be shared with you. Okay, so welcome to you all. Again, all delegates are in listen-only mode. There is a question screen, so if you want to ask questions as the webinar proceeds, that's fine, and we'll try and answer them either as we go along, or if not, we'll make sure that all of your questions have been answered by the end of the webinar. As I said, the webinar will be recorded, and that recording will be made available after the session. I appreciate that it's the middle of the day, and you know, it's not always easy for people to join webinars at that point. So hopefully that will give you flexibility. And what we would like to ask for, so that we can improve our webinar programme, is some feedback. So if you want to share any comments that you have about how the webinar went, and share your ideas for future webinars and events, that would be really appreciated. A bit of network news, just a reminder that applications for additional equipment are invited from existing centres every 3 years, up to a maximum value of £25,000, and that is to fund technology, with a minor part of the project that can be spent on furniture, furnishings and refurbishment. The next deadline for applications is the 19th of January, and the trustees meet in March to consider those applications. If I could ask that people let me know if you're planning on applying by January, that would be really helpful, because that will make sure that I can schedule my time, get along to do a visit if necessary, and support you to the best of my ability in the application process. We've currently got a call out for articles for the Christmas newsletter. The deadline for those is today, but I can flex that a little bit. If you can let me have any contributions by Monday, that would be good. If any of you have submitted those already, thank you very much. We've had a really great response for articles, but the really bad Christmas jokes haven't gone down very well. I thought that students and service users would really enjoy doing that, and I've not had a single joke. So if you could just rally the troops a little bit and get me some bad Christmas cracker jokes to include in the newsletter, that would be fab, and it would mean that I don't have to do them myself. Okay, and we've also got a Christmas card competition going on for the 2018 Karten e-Christmas card, at a time where hopefully your students, service users are involved in doing lots of Christmas related activities and artwork. So we invite stills or animations, photographs, digital images of original artwork is absolutely fine, and we'll provide certificates for everybody who submits an entry, and then the winners will be announced for next year's Christmas card. I thought I'd just like to tell you about Voice It, and Horizon 2020 project, which is a transnational project with the Karten Network as the UK partner. We also have partners in Italy, Spain and Israel, and this is to develop software called Voice It, which is an app that translates unintelligible speech. It's a really good opportunity for our Karten centres to get involved in testing, and if you'd like to know any more, if you'd like to let me know, then I can bring you up to speed with that project and see whether we can involve you in the trials. And at this point, I am going to hand over presenter privileges to Matt, and you just have to bear with me because I need to go across the room and just see what I need to do to assist with getting the presentation running. So just bear with me for 2 minutes, and we will get on with Matt's part of the presentation. Yes, I do. Right. Presenter, Matt. Do you want your webinar? Do you want your webcam?
Yes, please. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. If you can't hear me okay, if you can put something into the chat window, then hopefully Dawn will capably sort that out for us. And I think you should be able to see me now on the webcam as well. And there I am. Hello, everyone. This reminds me of years ago at a Tech Dis webinar that I took part in once. I remember sitting down and watching a colleague who shall remain nameless, it wasn't Dawn, I hasten to add, watching him eat his porridge from his little country retreat in France, because he turned his webcam on very, very early. So no porridge today, and hopefully you can all hear me. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to start by playing a video, and the video is basically a snapshot of my life and some of the different bits of technology that I use in my life. I'm visually impaired, I'm registered blind, I have central vision loss, so I do have some sight. And basically, this video hopefully is a starting point for the presentation today in terms of showcasing some of the various enabling technologies that I use to get by on a daily basis. So one of the things that isn't working today is my screen magnifier, which is very helpful on a day like today. So Dawn's very kindly offered to find the file for me. So we're just going to bring up the video, and then we'll talk more after the video.
It's very sound. Oh, is there? Yes.
Hey Siri, set alarm for 5 AM.
Okay, I've turned it on.
Out and about, using the Amazon Echo. Alexa, what's the weather in Nottingham tomorrow?
Tomorrow in Nottingham, you can expect lots of clouds, with a high of 15 and a low of 9.
Out and about, checking train times. Hey Siri, open train times.
Voiceover on. Train times. Link departures and arrivals. Heading. Nottingham New Street departures. Button. Nottingham departures. Button. Nottingham depart. Nottingham. Back button. Nottingham. Heading. Refresh. Button. Departures updated. 9:58. 10:05 to London St Pancras AM2 on time platform 5. 10:10 to Cardiff Central on time platform 3B.
Out and about, checking bus times. So we're here at the bus stop. There is a timetable there that I can't read at all, and I need to find out what time the next bus is to Wolverhampton.
Messenger. WhatsApp. Twitter. Train times. Train line. NetNav. NetNav. Sidebar menu icon. Northway. Dudley. Beacon Centre. Heading. In 1 minute. 9:20. Bus 1 towards Tettenhall Wood. In 4 minutes. 9:23. Bus 1 towards Dudley.
Out and about, booking a taxi using voice over and dictation.
Train time. Train line. NetNav. Go cars. Go-Cars. iOS 7 menu icon. Button. Go-Cars. We will pick you up. Favorite pickup look. Wolverhampton train station. Ely House Hotel. Beacon Centre for the blind. Note to your driver. Button. Text field. Is edited. Character mode. Insertion. Character mode. Insertion point of start. Return. Space. Dictate.
I am visually impaired. Full stop. Please look out for me. Full stop.
Done. Inserted. I am visually impaired. Please look out for me.
Out and about, locating a cash machine. Hey Siri, open ATM UK.
ATM UK, 74 location, button. Link, Coventry Building Society, Coventry BLDG SARC, 0.126 miles. Lloyds TSB Bank PLC, 12, 16 Lower Parliament Street, 0.14 miles.
Identifying things using the Vocalize app and artificial intelligence.
Are you sharing my screen?
Scan picture.
Identifying. I see. Technology, computer keyboard, electronic device.
Alert. There's text in your picture. Would you like me to read it?
Gaining critical information using the Amazon Echo. Alexa, who are Wigan Athletic playing next?
Wigan Athletic will play in the EFL League One this Saturday at 3 p.m. at home against Blackburn Rovers.
Leisure, accessing your music using Siri and the Apple Watch. Hey Siri, play some Stereo Lab.
Here's some music by Stereo Lab.
Sorry, who's coming to take
Leisure, using the Amazon Echo.
Anna says she dropped out.
Alexa, tell me a music joke.
I wrote a song about a tortilla. Actually, it's more of a rap.
Okay, so that's the end of that. Am I muted?
Your consent. So, okay.
Okay, so hopefully the video worked for you there. I don't know if we've had a show of hands as to whether or not we had any difficulties with that. But hopefully you saw 5 minutes, a 5-minute video there involving different pieces of assistive technology. Could we have something in the chat pane just to confirm that some people saw that, please? It made me feel much better.
Where's the presentation? It's on your desktop. How do I get to your desktop to get your presentation?
Windows and D.
Yeah.
Windows key and D.
Windows key.
And D. Take it to desktop. It's on the corner. Okay, so we're just bringing up the PowerPoint now that accompanies this presentation. And bear with us. Okay, great. So we started off with a day in the life video, which, as I say, showcased some of the different pieces of technology that I use every day. You may have seen on that video that at times I turn the screen off on my phone. That was just a demonstration thing to show that you can actually use a smartphone or a tablet when totally blind using VoiceOver or TalkBack if you're using Android. And you know, that's how you can access a device. So you don't actually need to be able to see anything at all for a lot of the apps that we use. And as you can see, I'm quite mobile with that kind of technology. So I suppose for me, the main thing is what's the impact of this technology? If you look at what my smartphone is, it's not just a phone anymore. And in fact, phoning is probably one of the things that I do the least. So it's my train ticket, It's my display board at the station to tell me what platform to go to. It's my audio book. It can recognize people. It can do all sorts, and it's become so much. I've used this analogy lots over the years with various pieces of technology. Never more so, I think, than with the smartphone. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. There's a bit of everything there. So it's a Swiss Army knife of life for people with disabilities. And today we're talking about visual impairment. So there are so many different things you can do with this level of technology, as long as you have the connectivity quite often. Because a lot of the apps that you saw me demonstrating in the video, they relied on actually being online. So what is the impact of this kind of technology to someone with a visual impairment? I look at myself and I think, would I be as mobile without it? Well, the answer is no. I can't read bus timetables. I can't read the displays at train stations. I can't complete journeys by myself. Whereas actually, with this smartphone in my pocket, which is just an off-the-shelf smartphone and a couple of cheap, if not free, apps, I'm very mobile. I commute every day from Nottingham to Wolverhampton for work, so there's a 5-hour commute there over the day. I couldn't do that without the technology that I use. It's an amazing thing to have, really. So the question then is, would I be employed? And I don't think I would be. I look at what I do for a living. I'm an assistive technologist by profession. I did that job before I realised I had an eye condition, before I lost my sight. So I'm quite lucky in that sense. But if you look at any particular role, there's a certain amount of sight needed to do these things, and a lot of reading. And if you think about reading, then obviously we're not just talking about visual impairment, we're talking about text impairment as a whole, which brings in learning difficulties, English as a second language. So again, the technology that we're talking about today, although we have a focus today on VI, it actually goes much wider. So technology for me is the absolute, it's the lifeblood of everything I do. A few of my favorite apps I've listed here. So some of them are apps and some of them are features. Obviously we have Siri, which is a voice assistant that comes with the iPhone. Obviously you have Sam on the Samsung device as well, on the Android, and there are lots of voice assistants around. And we'll talk more about voice control technology in a few minutes. So that's a big thing for me. Then there are the basic things like train times, apps, and bus timetables and things like that mean I'm independent. They're absolutely vital. Then there's all the things that are GPS based, so all the different things that use the maps. So we've got the Apple Maps app, Google Maps, a sensational application called Blind Square, which enables you to navigate unfamiliar environments. So Blind Square basically is a satellite navigation system for people who are blind, and it's 30 quid, which for an app is expensive, but for a sat-nav system is actually dirt cheap. So we have Blind Square, which is truly stunning, and you can ask it to pinpoint different things along your journey. So it stops you just doing a familiar route and only doing things that you know where they are. It will say things like, you could say, tell me when I see a coffee bar, and then it will tell you that there's a Starbucks or a Costa or an independent coffee bar just around the corner, and it will direct you there. So it stops you having to do the things that you know and enables you to be a bit more spontaneous in life, which is a big thing for me. So, there's some of my favorite apps. There are lots more. And if you have any questions about the apps, then please ask at the end. And also you can email me afterwards. I think my email address is at the end of this slideshow, which you'll have made available to you. So feel free to contact me personally, and we can discuss various apps. So I want to move on to smart assistants now, and here I'm talking about obviously the Google Home device, and in particular today the Amazon Echo, sorry, and what a wonderful piece of mainstream technology these are, but also how they're becoming great assistive devices as well. So the good thing about them is their affordability and the fact that they are absolutely everywhere. And because they're not just used by people with disabilities, the development of these pieces of technology is much quicker, and more skills are being added every single day. So they're voice controlled. You don't need your hands to use them at all, which again cuts across to different disabilities. So it's physical disability as well as a visual impairment thing. There's no reading involved, which is vital for people with a visual impairment. Someone mentioned last week at the TechShare Pro conference that the Amazon Echo and other smart assistants, I should say, This is the first time that we've had technology where the user interface is identical for someone with a visual impairment as it is for everybody else. So, you know, it's a fantastic piece of technology. And initially, I think there was probably quite a bit of novelty around the smart assistants and the questions that people would ask. But we're seeing more and more things now that you can do with the devices that actually it's not a novelty, it's just becoming part of everyday life. So basic questions that you can ask, you know, what's the weather like? We saw that in the video already. We've worked out today that you can ask both Siri and the Amazon Echo, and presumably the Google Home as well, how to spell a word. So if you're not too sure about your spelling, you can say, how do I spell technology? And it will do exactly that for you. So there are things like that which just make life a little bit easier in a very mainstream way. But then on top of this, there are the other applications where we can look at things like how to control lighting and other home devices, and how you link these to your Amazon device or your Google Home device. So here we're talking about things such as the Philips Hue lighting system, where you and other devices that you can plug into the wall. So we have the smart plugs available from lots and lots of different locations. They tend to be around about £30 each. Pick them up from hardware shops, and basically you plug these in and they then connect to your Wi-Fi, and you name the plug. And then whatever you plug into that device that you can physically turn on and off, such as a bedside light, what happens there is that when you then ask the Amazon Echo to turn on that particular plug with the name you've given it, it will then turn on the light in that room. So, you know, there's, again, implications wider than the visual impairment world, but basically across the whole world of disability, and looking at people with fine motor skills problems and things like that. And obviously you can link a lot of these devices together, so you can control things in particular rooms throughout the house if you've got more than one device. And they've recently introduced a calling system where you can call other people who use the same device as well. So you can actually call people using the Amazon Echo rather than your phone. And in your contacts part of your phone, then the people will appear with a notification that they have an Amazon Echo in their house, for example. So that's that. There's also, just bear with me 1 second. I think one thing that I want to bring up about the Echo in particular is the fact that sometimes the actual learning curve at the end, the actual use of the device at the end is easier than actually setting up the app. So there's quite often a need for someone to set it up with you, which is a bit of a shame. And also the app for the Amazon Echo isn't fully voiceover friendly, so it's not the easiest to use. Ironically, the actual device, when it is set up, is fantastic to use. So, you know, you think about things like putting a shopping list together. You just say, add to my shopping list, and say the thing you want to add, and it's on your shopping list. And then obviously you can pull your shopping list up on your phone and voice over it or magnify your screen and read the shopping list when you're in the shop. So it's a really good way of working. Unfortunately, you can't remove items from your shopping list using your voice, which seems a little bit of a shame. But I'm sure that kind of functionality will come. So yeah, that's kind of the Amazon device. The reason there's some chocolate biscuits on the photo is because I was just trying to demonstrate in a very scientific way how big the actual device is, and everyone knows how big a chocolate digestive is. So that's the Amazon Echo. Okay, I want to move on and talk about a free app here, an artificial intelligence. So some people think that the Amazon device and the Google device, the Home and the Echo, that they are artificial intelligence devices. Technically, I suppose they're not. They're more likely to be just intelligent assistants. And so, because they're not really predicting things in the way that artificial intelligence works. But there's a lot of AI stuff now coming out on the market, and a big one that I wanted to focus on today is a free app from Microsoft, which is called Seeing AI, the AI standing for artificial intelligence. And it's only available at the moment on iOS devices, so it's only available on the iPhone, really. Although once you've downloaded it onto your iPhone, you can probably get it onto your iPad as well. And it has various modes. So on the photo that you can see on the screen, there's me taking a picture of a bowl of fruit at home. So what I'm in there is something called scene prediction, and that will try and describe the scene that's in front of the camera. So we have that, and it's absolutely amazing what it will do. So the whole app will be able to OCR documents, so that means it will be able to read documents aloud, both short text it can do spontaneously, larger documents it can copy and then paste onto a clipboard, which you can then voice over or use talkback or whatever you want. So it has to be voice over because it's for the Apple device, but in theory you could use a screen reader to voice over that message. It will also describe products and people, although the caveat with the people side of things is that it isn't always that kind in terms of predicting people's ages. So you might want to be careful who you actually test that one out on. But I would say that if you smile, it takes about 6 years off your age. So, and if you frown, it adds about 6 or 7 years on. So that's the mantra there, is just be happy, basically. So it's a wonderful app, and we've got screenshots here that show the app being used to OCR a document. So OCR is optical character recognition, which is quite commonplace these days in assistive technology terms, and certainly in the visually impaired world. So the picture on the left is me holding my phone up over a document, and the right-hand side on the screen you can actually see the document that was scanned by the app. Now the interesting thing here is you might say, well, if you're visually impaired or blind, how do you actually know where the text is? And with this particular app, it's one of the first apps I've come across where it actually directs you. So with my previous favorite OCR app, which shall remain nameless today, you had to know where you were aiming, basically, and it was quite complicated to get it set up. You then had to hold the device with one hand and press the capture button with another one, whereas with this one it's a little bit easier and it's intuitive. So it will start to predict where the text is, and it will say things like top left-hand corner not visible, bottom edge not visible, and then you start to move your phone away and left and right accordingly. And then when it's ready, it will say hold steady, and it will take the photo and deal with the text. So in the short text version, it will then just read that aloud. In the longer text version, you then have to voice over it from the screen on the right-hand side. But that's quite a common skill to anyone who's familiar with using smart devices. So moving on from that, on a very, very similar level, we have OrCam. OrCam is, again, quite popular these days, and I hope I'm not kind of preaching to the converted and showing you things that you all know here. But OrCam basically is a little unit which is a camera and a very tiny speaker. That is, the latest version 1.5 is magnetic, and it will sit on either side of a glasses frame. So for me, I've got my OrCam on order at the moment, and I'm going to go into Specsavers and get myself some fashionable glasses frames, and I'm going to have my OrCam sat on the side of my glasses. Even though the glasses themselves won't have any lenses in, they'll just have glass in, and they actually serve no function whatsoever. And what happens with OrCam basically is it's got the same OCR capabilities that the Seeing AI app had, and it can also recognize people. So basically it sits on the side of your glasses frame, and then at the moment it has a little wired unit that has a button to press to capture the image, but it also deals with gesture recognition, which is incredible. So you can literally point at a piece of text, and it will then read that aloud nice and discreetly using the little earpiece that's alongside it. It's a sensational piece of technology. For me, it's one of the biggest developments in visual impairment technology in the last few years. I think between this and the smartphone, they're the biggies for me at the moment. So it's absolutely fantastic, and as I say, it will recognize people, so you take photos and you tell it who it is, and whenever that person turns a certain way and the camera recognizes them, it will say their name, so you know who's in the room in the meeting. The thing I like about OrCam is that it is body worn, so it's wearable technology, which means it's hands-free. It's also quite discreet. So hopefully from next week onwards, when I'm coming in on the train in the morning, I'll be reading the Metro like everybody else, and people might not even notice, because most people sit on the train with earphones in. So I don't actually think I'm going to be very different to anybody else on the train, which is quite a big thing in terms of disability technology. You don't want it to scream disability at somebody. And the latest version, as I say, is magnetic, and the new version that will follow in the new year, OrCam 2, is a wireless version. So they've done away with the big unit. The unit itself is only the size of a smartphone, but they've done away with the unit and the wire, and it will connect via Bluetooth, I believe, to your mobile device. So again, advancing there all the time. and it'll be interesting to see how it has to adapt to compete with the Seeing AI app, and only time will tell what happens there. I think the final thing for me to mention today in terms of tech is something called Sight Plus, and Sight Plus is a smartphone-based device that's been developed by a company called Give Vision, and what happens here is that it sits a smartphone in front of your eyes using, I suppose, a virtual reality style headset, and basically you have a little remote control which looks like something from a Nintendo, and basically you then zoom in and zoom out using the remote control. You can also change the contrast options, so if you're reading text this way, you can change it to yellow on black, which is my preferred choice, or whatever, blue on yellow, you name it, you can change it. So again, it's a hands-free kit. I trialed this for a while and I used it to take my laptop to pieces. So the tiny screws on the back of a laptop I couldn't see well enough, so I stuck on the Sight Plus headset and I unscrewed my laptop and took it to pieces, just to be a bit nerdy. But it enabled me to do that, whereas otherwise I'd have to get somebody else to do that for me, and I like to be independent. So they do that as you can either one-off fee to buy it, or you can just rent it as well, in the same way you'd perhaps rent another device. So it's two different ways of looking at things, really, and it's interesting because both these companies are actually downstairs at the moment demonstrating it to the customers here at Beacon Centre, and they're not really competitors in a way, because it's a personal choice whether or not you choose to look at something and use what sight you have left and therefore go down the Sight Plus route, or whether or not you think, I just want it to be read aloud to me and I don't worry about seeing it myself, in which case you kind of go down the ORCAM route. So there's two different ways of tackling the problem of text impairment, which is the kind of the link between the two devices, I suppose, here. And it's amazing to see how technology is moving on. So I suppose today we've covered very basically lots of different apps. So we've seen how you can get around using the different apps. You've seen me demonstrate how to use VoiceOver with and without the screen turned on. Obviously you can magnify the screen on your tablet and smartphone as well. And interestingly, you can obviously use both the Sight Plus and the ORCAM headset to view something that's on the screen as well. So there's different ways of dealing with information that's put in front of you. We've also looked at the voice control side of things through the Amazon Echo. And Dawn was asking for some cheesy jokes. Well, if you ask Alexa to tell you a joke, you're going to get plenty of cheesy jokes there. My favourite one so far being, what do you call a singing laptop? Adele. So I quite like that one. Anyway, yeah. So that's not my joke. It's far too good for me, actually. But if you want to get in touch, there are the details. And I'll happily field any questions now if we have time, Dawn. Or if not, you've got my email address on there. Feel free to drop me something and I can discuss things in more detail. Or give me a ring or something. But I hope that's a nice whistle-stop tour of lots of technology that's available for people with visual impairments at the moment.
Can you just say that I need to take that presentation?
Okay, so Dawn's now taking back control, and she'll be zipping me up and muting me, I should say.
And we'll take questions through the question pane.
Okay, yeah, and we'll take questions through the question pane, so I welcome any questions.
Okay, hello everybody. Hopefully you can hear me again. I'm back. Thank you very much indeed to Matt for sharing that fascinating presentation and his personal experiences with us. I think, what an absolute expert, and we're really, really fortunate to have benefited from Matt's input today. If you're anything like the delegates that are here at Beacon Centre, sorry, I'm just getting back to my slides. This isn't as slick as it should have been. If you're anything like the delegates that are here at Beacon Centre, you'll have been fascinated by Matt's presentation. And what we've all said is there's just so much that he's gone through in a relatively short space of time. So we will get the recording out to you. We'll also make sure that you've got resources available and share those with you along with the recording. So you'll get an email follow up with all of that detail on, and then you'll be able to go and look at more of the apps for yourselves. So I've just moved to a screen that's really around different ways in which you can keep in touch with the work that's going on across the Karten Network. And if there are any questions, we'll take questions before we just finish off and get back to our other delegates. I'm not seeing any questions in the question pane. If anybody has anything that occurs to them after the webinar, as Matt said, you've got contact details for Matt and for myself. So if you'd like to email us, then I'm sure that either Matt or myself will do whatever we can to get back to you with the information required. So different ways of keeping in touch with what's going on across the network: Facebook, Twitter, website, all of the details are there. And I'll send this out with the recording. And just a reminder that there are people that can spend time within your organisations, the network support team. Myself, I'm responsible for what goes on in the UK. Martin Pistorius has a responsibility for mobile technology, and Debbie Bental, of course, supporting our Israeli centres. And increasingly, we're seeing some really good work going on between organisations with study visits or people just supporting each other online or by phone, and just kind of asking questions, asking for recommendations about different pieces of technology. I think the strength of the network are, the many experts within it. You heard from Phil McIntyre from Beaumont last week, talking to us about needs-based assessment, Matt today, and there are many others. So back to something I said that at the beginning of the webinar, if you do have something that you think you can contribute, an area of expertise that you'd be happy to present on, then it would be really, really good to have your input. I'll just move on to a reminder that our next webinar is next Thursday. We're going back to a twilight slot, so it's at 4 o'clock, and Martin is delivering this webinar. It's about mobile technology, and it's tips, tricks, and just general information for managing mobile devices. I'm sure that you'll find that a really, really interesting presentation too. Just head back to the question pane and make sure there's nothing that we haven't answered. Yep, so thank you very much, Richard, saying no questions, lots of food for thought, very interesting, and especially the Seeing AI app. I think there's quite a lot of excitement around that app and the potential that it has. Be careful pointing it at people, though it can age them, but it's better with a smile on their face, apparently. If they smile, then it takes a few years off. So if anybody comes at you with Seeing AI on a device, make sure you're smiling. Okay, right, we're going to get back to the other delegates and head off to the workshops. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and look forward to you joining us next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.